Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to CC Productions. The NFL trade deadline is officially in the books. And although we didn't see big names like Mac Jones, Jameis Winston, Derrick Henry, Jalen Johnson get traded today, we definitely saw some big moves that could shake up the rest of the NFL season. So let's take a look at those trades, give some analysis and grades, and let's get right into it. First up, Montez Sweat traded to the Chicago Bears. Commanders in return get a 2023 second round pick. First up, the Chicago Bears. I'm going to give them a B- on this. Edge rusher is definitely a spot they needed to fill, and Montez Sweat will definitely fill that role. The only issue I have with this trade is just kind of the timing with it. Montez Sweat is on an expiring contract, so this is a guy where he's going to play the remainder of this year, which for the Bears this year is pretty much already a wash. So it's going to be really awkward seeing him playing and the Bears aren't playing well, and the timing's weird because then at the end of the year, we're going to have to re-sign this guy anyway to a big contract. So I understand it's definitely easier to re-sign a guy who's already on your team, but this is technically a guy we could have gotten in free agency. Also, I apologize. I said we there. I'm a Bears fan, so I feel like it's a we thing. Not to mention, Chase Young went later in the day, which we will talk about, for a third-round pick. So the compensation for a second looks a little bit worse, especially given the fact that the Bears' second-round pick is 35th overall right now. So that's a very valuable pick. And we saw what happened last year when Ryan Poles made a trade with a second-round pick at the deadline for Chase Claypool and how that turned out. So jury's still out on this. This could definitely improve and be a great trade for the Bears in the long run. But for right now, it's a B-. For the Commanders, I have to give this an A. I mean, the Commanders had a great day today. If you're a Washington Commanders fan, you got to be happy with everything that happened. But obviously a little sad to lose some guys like you did today. But you got a guy off of your team who probably wasn't going to be re-signing in free agency, which lowers his value quite a bit when other teams know this guy's probably not re-signing. The new GM, Josh Harris, he gets a guy off his roster who he's now not going to have to repay, gets another pick where he can choose a player he wants on his team, and also frees up money in free agency for him moving forward. So we can tell the Commanders are in full rebuild mode. They've pressed that rebuild button. I think Josh Harris is doing a good job of it, setting himself up for a ton of opportunities this offseason to get some guys on the roster he wants. Commanders, you get an A for this trade. Next up, Josh Dobbs traded to Minnesota. The trade details, Josh Dobbs and a 7th-round pick to Minnesota. Minnesota gives Arizona back a 6th-round pick. For Minnesota, I wanted to give this a worse grade, but after I look at it more and more, I'll give it a B. The reason I'm giving it a B is I would have liked them to go out and get a guy like Jameis Winston. You see your teams competing, and all of a sudden you're starting to get some momentum going, and it really does suck. You lose Kirk Cousins, but a guy like Jameis Winston has that upside where, hey, maybe he can still do something with this team and he's got the upside for it. Or maybe Taylor Heineke, who just had a great game for the Falcons. I understand that's, taking a risk on a guy and you have to give up more compensation for a guy who's only going to be there for the rest of the year, but just some thoughts I had. So I understand making the move for Josh Dobbs. They don't want to put Jaren Hall out there, the rookie from BYU. He's probably not ready to go out there and play. They don't want to throw him out there too early. So you're going to get a guy like Josh Dobbs who's going to come in, fill a void that you obviously need at quarterback right now. Dobbs really showed in those last couple games for the Cardinals. He's not anything that's going to, affect you in the win column, but I think this is a good move for the Vikings. You need a quarterback. You went out and got a solid guy who will hopefully finish the year for you and get you into next year. For the Cardinals, C+. They already said they weren't going to be rolling with Josh Dobbs in the future anyway. Kyler Murray looked like he was coming back soon, but even if Kyler didn't come back this week, they already announced they were going to be playing rookie Clayton Tune. So Dobbs wasn't going to be seeing any more playing time this year. So really all they're doing is they're getting Josh Dobbs off their roster who wasn't going to be contributing on the field whatsoever. And you move up from a 7th-round pick to a 6th-round pick. So I guess C+ because you move up one round, but it's really not a huge trade for the Cardinals. They just got a guy off their roster, and they're going to move forward with a little bit better of a pick. So C+ to you, Cardinals. It was a decent move. The real loser in this trade, though, I feel for you, Josh Dobbs. This is the second time he's been traded pretty much in 3 months. Got traded to Arizona right before the regular season, and now Minnesota at the trade deadline. So Chase Young to the 49ers, really, really close to the end of the trade deadline. Huge move for the 49ers here. Definitely something I can tell you I was not expecting, but 49ers never been shy around the trade deadline. They traded for CMC last year, and we've seen how that turned out. So can I give both teams an A here? Because I really want to. I already gave the Commanders an A earlier. I really love their day. It was something they had to do, and it's great that they're getting the rebuild rolling like I already talked about. Josh Harris, new pieces, blah, 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 picks, all that. But on the 49ers side of thing, I mean, this is a pretty buy low price on Chase Young, third round pick for a previous second overall pick, and you pair him up with a ridiculous defensive line. They've got to be ecstatic over there in San Francisco. You got Nick Bosa on one side of the line. You got Chase Young on the other. Their defensive line is nasty. Their whole defense is pretty much nasty, and adding Chase Young to that is pretty crazy. So I will definitely be excited to see how that plays for the rest of the year. Another big thing I think this helps out with is the 49ers are on a 3-game slid right now. They've got a bye week coming up, so they'll be able to get some things right, but this will be a huge momentum boost in that locker room. Be like, hey, we got Chase Young in here. We know we're going for a Super Bowl. We know we're contenders. We're all in right now. This would be a boost for that locker room, getting a guy like Chase Young in there. I think it'll revamp that team a little bit moving forward. 49ers, A for you on the trade, and hopefully this works out in the long run. And lastly, a trade that happened yesterday, Leonard Williams getting traded to the Seahawks in return for a 2024 second-round pick and 2025 fifth-round pick. For me, I'll give this trade a B+ for the Seahawks. I really like that they're saying, hey, we're all in this year. We're going to take Leonard Williams. We think our team is legit. We're going in. Because before the season, I wasn't sold on the Seahawks. Now they're in a spot where they're contending. They're winning the NFC West right now, which is crazy to think about. And they're saying, hey, this is our year. Let's go get it. So I like this trade. I think this is what the Seahawks should be doing. They should be buying right now, trying to compete and possibly make a push for the Super Bowl. Giants on the other end, I'll give this a C+. They get a pretty good return for it in a second and a fifth, but they still have to take on a ton of this money in the long run. It's a C+ because the Giants have really screwed themselves this year where they were in a position where they thought they were going to compete, and now they have to try to rewind and try to rebuild because their season's gone terribly. And now they have to pay this money. That's going to hurt them in the offseason. They're not have money to pay other places. So it's a spot where the Giants really couldn't win in the long run. So C+ for them. And it's a trade they needed to make because Leonard Williams definitely doesn't fit their timeline at the moment. But Giants just aren't in a good spot as an organization overall. So they got to do something. They did something. And officially Leonard Williams is a Seahawk. So C+ for them. Here were some other trades that happened today. Didn't think I could provide like a ton of analysis on these, and they're not massive trades, but they're definitely worth mentioning. So I'll throw these up here so you guys can take a look at them, and you can make some grades on those yourself if you'd like to. But that'll be it for me. So crazy to think we're already at the NFL trade deadline in the season. Feels like just last week I was watching the Lions and the Chiefs on Thursday Night Football to open the season, but we're quickly moving through the NFL season. I'm super excited to see how all these trades play out moving forward for every team. Be sure to like the video, leave a comment on which trade you thought was the best, and as always, subscribe so you don't miss any of my content, but I will see you next time.